This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Manise. On today's program, Helsinki Design Week turns 20. We also talk highlights at this year's London Open House Festival, plus an interview with furniture gallery H100 at Zurich Design Weeks. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Hello and welcome to today's program. We're starting in Helsinki, where the city has just wrapped up its annual Design Week. For 10 days, the Finnish capital became a stage for exhibitions, studio visits, talks and installations. More than 150,000 visitors took part. Alongside it, Habitare, Finland's leading furniture and interiors fair, also saw heritage brands and emerging names brought together under the roof of the trade hall. To recap all that, Monocle's Helsinki correspondent, Petri Burtsoff, sent us this report.
Helsinki Design Week turned 20 this year. What began in 2005 as a way to bring the city's design community together has grown into the largest design festival in the Nordics. Its influence now stretches beyond showrooms and galleries, shaping how Helsinki sees itself as a design capital. The festival's main exhibition was staged in the Suomi building, a striking Art Nouveau structure in the central Helsinki that has long been closed to the public. Here's the festival's program director, Anni Korkman.
So this year we're in Suomitalo, which is right in the center of the city on Lönnrotenkatu 5. So it's literally 7 minutes from the central railway station. And yet so many people don't know of it. It was completed in 1911, designed by Armas Lindgren, who is one of our most prominent architects. But it's been a real blind spot. I suppose it's one of those grand buildings that just has been closed from the public for forever. And I quite like the idea of us just taking over now for 10 days to mark the buildings and maybe create some new memories or even perspectives for the citizens of Helsinki to visit them.
Inside, Swiss-based curator Anniina Koivu asked a pointed question. Can happiness be designed? Riffing on Finland's rich design heritage and its reputation as the world's happiest country, according to the UN rankings.
We look into the concept of happiness, and can happiness be designed? And even though it's such a familiar and close topic for all of us, at least to our knowledge, it hasn't been studied from the perspective of design.
But Design Week isn't only about one venue. It's a citywide festival. Galleries, studios and even embassies join in. The program is built through an open call that draws on Helsinki's creative community.
We're so happy and proud and privileged even to have this community of designers and creatives in Helsinki who have marked their calendars for September. And we get in touch always in the beginning of the year. We start having these conversations, even quite in-depth ones, in which we learn about what's interesting, what's topical, what's happening, what do they find meaningful at the moment, what are the themes and topics the makers and the thinkers and the designers of Helsinki want to talk about. It's not just design from what you would usually suspect. We see it as a more broader approach of philosophy even.
That holistic approach to design is part of the festival's identity. It doesn't stop at chairs and tables, but considers how design influences society, from urban planning to digital services. 2 decades on, Helsinki Design Week remains a family enterprise that runs with minimal support from the authorities. Founder Kari Korkman is still CEO, while his daughters Anni and Iris run the program and community. For Anni, who has grown up with the festival, its impact is hard to separate from the city itself.
What I hope is that Helsinki Design Week has brought the city of Helsinki and especially Helsinkians some kind of sense of maybe pride and belonging to this very interesting and even sometimes well-designed city.
Running in parallel is Habitare, Finland's most important interiors fair. Unlike many international trade shows, Habitare attracts both professionals and consumers, people who come not only to browse but also to buy. At this year's fair, I caught up with a few interesting local brands who had chosen to launch new collections and products at Habitare. First was Finarte, a heritage rug maker that celebrates its 40th anniversary this year.
Hi, I'm Larissa and I'm the second generation CEO of Finarte. We've brought back some classics from our old collections that were designed by our founder, my mother, Eija Rasimäki, and we're also focusing this year a lot on rag rugs, which is the foundation of our company, because they're such an amazing product. They're handmade, they preserve very important cultural heritage, and plus they're also super ecological because we use only upcycled materials for our rag rugs.
Next, I headed to the colorful stand of Hakola, a made-in-Finland brand known for its sofas.
I'm Marko Wikman and I'm responsible for B2B sales at Hakola. This is the new collection which is called Hakola Details, and we are a sofa company. We are making furniture in Finland. With the details we are of course doing things for that you can have a piece of Hakola also with you if you're traveling to Finland and you're interested about the Hakola brand.
What kind of items are included in this Details collection?
We have pillows, so then we have throws, and then we have tote bags, and the new thing is also it's carpets, which are also made in Finland.
From Hakola's perspective, you're a heritage brand, loved by Finns, made in Finland brand. What does being present here at Habitare mean to you?
It's very important. This year we have a big booth, and it's a key thing at this economical situation also that we reach B2C clients, and we have a very good web shop, but of course you have to this touch and feel is very important for us with the colors and everything, so you see actually the products. So this is a place where we actually are seeking sales.
For Finnish brands, Habitare is the place to launch new products and test ideas with a local audience. And for visitors, it's a chance to see how design here is evolving, rooted in craft, but open to experimentation. Helsinki Design Week and Habitare show a city comfortable with both its traditions and its ambitions. One brings global conversations about design to the urban audiences, the other demonstrates the strength of Finland's interiors industry. Together, they engage design lovers to think about the role that design plays not only in making our surroundings more pleasant, but also in making our societies better and happier. For Monocle in Helsinki, I'm Petri Burtsov.
We're back, and I'm joined by Maylee Evans, this show's producer, to set up the next part of the episode. Maylee Evans, where are we going? What are we going to hear about?
We're going to hear from Simon Vickery now. He is the programme manager of the London Open House Festival. I'm
very familiar with it. I'm also familiar with the Open House Festival concept more broadly. I mean, it's one of the highlights when I was living in Perth, my hometown. It was kind of a great opportunity to have a little bit of a sticky beak in a heap of different buildings. So they, at least in Perth, they open up public buildings, but also lots of people's private homes, which I feel like is less common in London, but maybe you get a little bit of it.
Well, no, actually, you do get some residential properties in the mix. I was looking at a few that are sort of near where I live, and some very nice extensions and, window seats that you can kind of perch on, I suppose, and just take a wander through some very, very, very beautiful homes, buildings, factories, schools, you name it. Spaces you wouldn't have access to normally are open for you to explore and sort of appreciate.
And I think that's what's so remarkable about it, is it also, and you're talking about visiting other homes near your home, but giving you a little bit of inspiration or maybe some ideas for how you might be able to do things, or maybe slightly tweak your own space, but also to get some context of what's happening in the buildings around you, because I think that's also really nice to, maybe step inside a factory and see how things are run and how things are made, and know that I have very soft hands and I'm probably not suited to working on the factory floor, but I can certainly appreciate the beauty of what's taking place in them. But this year, over 800 sites across all of London's boroughs featured.
The festival is run by a charity called Open City, and they do a number of different things. I mean, one of the titles they published recently was all about London and its food. So again, it's not just strictly architecture, it's ways of understanding a city and getting, I guess, its inhabitants involved and interested in the city, and to make it a more open, accessible and equitable place. So I really recommend you do sort of go onto the website and see what else they're up to.
And that's the Open City website.
Exactly. But going back to the Open House Festival, the idea is that you might pass these incredible buildings just on your commute, or they might be on the fringes of your everyday experience, but there are very few ways that you can actually engage with them in a meaningful way, or to find out a bit about their history, or as you mentioned, how they fit into the history of an area. And it's about creating that sense of connection to where you live. It's not just about 10 Downing Streets or the BT Tower, those sort of iconic buildings. It's about also exploring your own neighbourhoods.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a linking up of, I guess, our own memories and understanding of the cities with the actual architecture of our city, which I think is really beautiful. So we're going to throw now to a conversation that you had with Simon Vickery, as you said. He's the program manager of the London Open House Festival.
I began by asking Simon about some of the highlights from this year's lineup.
We have new things every year, but we also have a real kind of solid core of buildings that come back again and again and are really sort of well loved in the programme. So we've got some amazing examples of housing from the middle of the 20th century. In particular, London's got these incredible big kind of housing estates. Lillington Gardens estate is a real sort of favourite of mine in Pimlico, and the Isocon building that's in Hampstead. So they're very, very sort of different ones. One is this kind of red brick housing estate that's post-war, and one sort of looks like an ocean liner. It's this big kind of sleek white building. One that I really loved from a couple of years ago, Sands End Arts and Community Centre in Fulham. So that's built by May Architects, who won the Sterling Prize the other year. It's this really stunning community space. And one that I've not been to, but that I plan to this year, it's the Great Barn in Harmsworth. So it's a medieval barn dating from 1426. We don't have many buildings that are that old in the festival. But just to show we really do kind of have the real sort of breadth of London's history in the festival. So those are all things that you can drop into. So you can just turn up, you look on the festival website, you find when they're open, and you just show up. There's one I want to mention that's a bit cheekily because it probably is booked up, but I think it just kind of shows the breadth of stuff that's in the festival. And that's E.ON's CityGen Energy Centre. So it's amazing. It's this small power station that's hidden behind the facade of an old building in opposite Smithfield Market. And it's the hub of this kind of amazing low-carbon, decentralised energy network that feeds the Guildhall and the Barbican and the New London Museum and all around there. So like I say, it probably is fully booked up at the minute, but people do return tickets. So if you like the sound of that, do check it out.
With this year's lineup, what are some of the new things we can expect?
So something I'm really excited about is that we've got a handful of buildings that are situated in and around the Olympic Park. There's a mixture of the 2012 buildings, but also there's the new cultural buildings that are there as part of the sort of the Here East and the East Bank developments. So that's things like the Lee Valley Velo Park and the Aquatic Centre from the Olympics that are sort of well-established buildings now, but also new sites like Sadler's Wells East and Studio Wayne McGregor. I went to the Olympic Park for the first time in about 5 years the other week, and it's so drastically different from how I remember it. It's got to be one of the most rapidly changing neighbourhoods in London. So I think it's a really interesting kind of microcosm of, what happens when a load of resources get pumped into an area and a load of kind of skilled architects and planners. So I'm really excited by that, and I'd really encourage people to have a look on, it's a neighbourhoods page on our website. That's what it's called, and you can find the Olympic Park neighbourhoods and lots of other wonderful neighbourhoods there as well.
This neighbourhoods page, it feels interesting because it sort of steers people away from those big name buildings that always get the attention. It focuses you away from that central London sort of hub. With some of the maybe newer places that have appeared in more recent years, what's the response been from the buildings or the places that have taken part? And, have they gone, actually, this has been an amazing way to reach new people? What's kind of been their take on it?
We know that more than half of our visitors use the neighbourhoods page or the collections page of our website. People find it. Often we get feedback that the programme is overwhelming, which is true. It's overwhelming to work on. It's overwhelming to look at. There's lots of things. So the neighbourhoods exactly is about making sense of that. But we do know that if something is on that neighbourhoods page and if people are opening their building at the same time as other people locally, then they just get more footfall. And it gives people a real, like you say, it sort of gets them exploring those perhaps less famous, less iconic buildings, those less well-trodden areas of London. But it also kind of helps them understand how entire neighbourhoods are constructed through new architecture and how small locality can be changed by the introduction of a new building and its relationship to the old buildings. And that's a really interesting thing to watch happen.
And I suppose because the festival has been running for quite a number of years, as you mentioned, it must be interesting to see the shifts or trends of what becomes really popular. Or, I mean, I just wonder whether, if a location gets featured in a film or gets picked up, does suddenly, people want to visit there, or are some buildings or sites always just straight away, tickets gone?
I mean, I sort of started there with a couple of housing estates. We do find there's been this real, I suppose, particularly with brutalism, this kind of fascination with brutalism for the last sort of couple of decades. So anything made of concrete, people flock to. People love homes as well. Like, I think that's the real kind of draw, more so than, I would say, actually, than big kind of iconic buildings. The things that people are really desperate to get into are kind of interesting, unusual homes that are doing something different with space or a different kind of way of inhabiting a building. Like, that's often the most kind of sought after sites.
What can someone who's just a bit nosy and intrigued get from visiting a site, as you say, like a medieval sort of farmhouse, what have you? What are some of the comments or things that people take away who aren't necessarily working or practicing in that way?
Yeah, so this is something as a charity that we ask ourselves sort of a lot. Like, what can a festival like ours sort of do in our particular kind of moment, this historical moment that is actually sometimes quite a scary and uncertain one. It feels like we live in quite a sort of volatile society sometimes. We've been going since 1992. Lots of buildings used to open. You'd get government buildings would just sort of open their doors and people would kind of wander in all day. That feels like a sort of a distant past now. And sort of alongside that, like, London is this kind of amazing cosmopolitan multicultural city. But for some time now, there have been very sort of loud voices in British public life kind of deriding multiculturalism and the sheer existence of plurality. And now we've seen that becoming more and more kind of ubiquitous in mainstream politics. So the real question for us is, how can we foster connection and belonging in the face of all that? So yes, we're a festival about buildings, but actually the important thing is, what happens to people when they come to visit them? What's the impact on them? How can learning about where you live and where we all live together, how can that impact you? I think there's a real inherent value about where you live. My son's at primary school and we went in to speak to his teacher the other day and they were talking about the geography curriculum. And they say with the kids, so they're 5-year-olds, with their geography lessons, they start by understanding the world around them, so about where they are. So we live in Lewisham, so they start geography, they start their study of the whole world by looking at Lewisham, and then they work outwards. And I think that's something the festival offers you the chance to do. Like, we're all here in London, whatever our experiences, our identities, our heritage, we're all here now. So let's start by kind of understanding where we are, and then we can kind of look out from there.
In the last couple of years, you've had sort of curators come in and sort of bring in their own understanding of an area or how they navigate a city. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about maybe some of the curatorial lineup, what sites they're bringing attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, we have a little roster of guest curators. Each year they bring their own kind of knowledge and their connections. We do it for a few reasons. It kind of helps us to bring new buildings into the programme, as well as new audiences. But as our sort of guest curators curate a collection, so there'll be a page on our website, a small collection of buildings that they've sort of, I suppose, they recommended or they've got into the festival themselves. So that's a really useful way into the programme for visitors with a particular interest, as the full programme can sometimes feel overwhelming. It's 800 sites. So if you see someone with a particular interest or a particular angle, that's a great way in for you. So we've got Sarah Hersey this year, who's an artist and spatial designer, who's looking at print, publishing and archives. Joss Boyce, who's a disability and design activist, kind of looking at kind of spaces of resistance and alternative ways of living. Claudia Kenyatta and Emma Squire, they're the joint CEOs of Historic England, so they're looking at different iterations of home in the festival and what home can look like all over London and in different parts of London. And then Justine Simons, who's the Deputy Mayor for Culture and Creative Industries, and she's looking at artist studios. It's a collection called London's Cultural Engine. So that, a real variety of spaces, some of which we wouldn't have been able to get into the festival without those guest curators.
Part of your role is working with the contributors with some of these buildings and sites. What are some of the challenges of pulling together such a varied programme and working across all these different London boroughs? Because that's quite an undertaking.
So a big part of the challenge is making sure that everyone has the information they need. The festival has always been somewhat volunteer-powered. So we've got an amazing group of volunteers who come into the office and support us kind of every week with reaching out to contributors. There's sort of about 10 of them at the minute. And then over the festival itself, this year I think we have 850 volunteers who kind of help us with the actual running of the events. Yeah, it is a challenge, but there's loads of people giving us their time for free is kind of what makes it possible. I mean, and that in itself is a big challenge, keeping it free. You know, we have the support of the London boroughs financially, we have corporate sponsorship, visitor donations, but it's a difficult time to ask people for money. Statutory funding is really hard to come by. You know, the festival's always going to be free because that's baked into its character, but it's a continual challenge to kind of find ways to keep it free.
I'm just intrigued because I read that you've been a housing activist, and so your passion for buildings and homes and the like has sort of been instilled for you long before you came to this festival. So I wondered how that influences the way you think about this festival and what you find interesting, or just kind of your own take on what this festival does for people and the importance of it.
I suppose I like to think about it as an opportunity to think critically about London's sort of past and its present and its future. So it's lovely to look at an old building and think like, isn't that a beautiful example of whatever it is? But actually to think, well, what did that mean for the people who lived in it at the time? What's it used for now? How has its use changed? What does that tell you about kind of the shifting face of London? And, you know, what are the spaces in London at the moment that maybe give us a more kind of hopeful future than the ones that are often sort of presented in the minute. London's a difficult place to live. You know, I lived in London all my life. I love it. I'm not going to go anywhere else. But it's a difficult place to live. It's an expensive place to live apart from anything else. But I think one of the most valuable things about the festival is it actually, because you go around London, you see people doing so many different things in such a kind of harsh, difficult environment. Actually, it can be a very hopeful experience to go and see that across the week.
That was Simon Vickery, the programme manager of the London Open House Festival.
And the festival runs in venues across the city until the 21st of September 2025. So there's still a bit of time to go and see some of these amazing buildings that you typically wouldn't have access to. Visit the Open House Festival website for more information.
And finally on the show, we're going to throw to you, Nick. I believe you were in Zurich last week.
Well, yeah, absolutely believe it. I was definitely there. I was in town for a talk with the furniture firm Sites, this amazing American-Swiss furniture company. All the products are kind of designed in America by this American-Swiss duo and then manufactured back in Switzerland. I'm saying America and Switzerland a lot, but they're the two key parts of this firm's work. But it's this amazing joinery. It was focused really on slow manufacturing and slow production, and also kind of slow living. And by that being intentional about what we bring into our homes, the kind of furniture that we bring into our homes, but also intentional about how we make it. So that's why I was in town. And if you're lucky, you might hear more from Seats at a later stage across our channels. But Desiree Bandley, our colleague, was also in town, partly because she lives there. And I know she sent you another little snippet from the Zurich Design Weeks, which I like because it kind of spreads it out over a 10-day period.
No, that's exactly it. So Desi sent us a snippet of audio. She managed to catch up with the founder of H100. Now, this is like an umbrella organisation. They're doing quite a few things. So they've got one branch which is selling vintage wares. They've got another which is focusing on wooden tables and chairs. They've got another branch that is selling sort of newer items. So they're doing a lot in furniture. They're covering all of the bases. But this sort of overarching brand, H100, sort of encompasses all of that and is more focused on 20th century furniture. And they are produced in partnership with Swiss furniture manufacturers.
I mean, that's a beautiful story, looking at, I guess, archival designs, but working with contemporary makers today. So kind of continuing this manufacturing and craft tradition that maybe otherwise could potentially die out. As there are easier ways to make things than going to furniture makers in a country like Switzerland. But let's hear from Desi's chat with the founder of H100, Fabio Dubler, who was talking about their contributions to the Design Weeks.
These Design Weeks is kind of special because 2 years ago when we launched Memphis here in Zurich, I thought, okay, now it's my last really important step that I can conclude or finish the whole vintage story, but it changed and it's kind of never-ending story, I think. But now I'm again on the point that I think it's really the last big job I have to do in this area, and that is to give the story for the people that that Switzerland has important stories also beside like the watch industry, the bank industry, the insurance industry. I think this furniture industry just got forgotten because there's not so much money. It's difficult in a small country to produce furnitures and bring them over border. People haven't been interested in that. But I think it has an important story. And for me, it's quite an honor to now launch these products.
And yes, you said a few pieces. What exactly are you launching?
The product that is the first in the time row, it's like the Kurt sideboard S943. He launched this series of sideboards and drawers, and I think this is kind of so simple and nicely done. It's kind of, I would say, like a golden cut. If you look at it, it's just kind of perfect, and I think it's also translating the style of Switzerland a little bit, because it's that clean, not loud, but in the details all is perfect, all is somehow nicely done. That's one sideboard we're producing, and we're offering in maple as well as in walnut.
So you take the designs of pieces that already existed before and you reproduce them.
Exactly. There's so many things that are perfectly done. You don't need to redesign them. If something is good, it will stay good. If it's timeless, so why should you do it new? Of course, we did some small adjustments, like, for example, in this time, like 50s, they didn't take care about the backside. So, of course, we made the backside somehow nicely. But in general, we really have the idea to keep it as it is and to make it as much as original as possible. We also use like old screws. We really keep attention on details to make it really nice. And also like things you don't see, like we don't have Spannplatten inside. It's like all massive wood. It's all like very nicely done.
Here at Design Week, every piece of furniture gets their evening, where it's talked about a bit of the history, the design, how it came about.
So now first we talked about the Tut, which was made the sideboard in 1953. Now before it was Klaus Vogt with the Squaderschrank. He was doing in 1964 for himself, like for his first apartment or house, like where he didn't have lots of money, so he had to choose like a easy way to do a cupboard. Yesterday we had the event of Dieter Weckerlin, the sideboard Sesam. The sideboard we reproduced from this time. This 50s area is quite interesting because after the World War we had to work with like very little options to generate something great. And he did also, I think, a sideboard which is somehow perfect, no? We have these sliding doors which are very simple and it's all kind of not heavy. It's even a little bit flying, I think. It's more designy than the Kortut sideboard. The Kortut sideboard is timeless Swissness, and the Weckerlin sideboard is already a little bit international design, looking for some nice flying edges. It's out of the normal, expected normal format, so it's a bit deeper, it's a bit lower, but it's kind of great as well. Normally, you wouldn't choose two sideboards by beginning, but it's kind of perfect. We need these two because they explain like the difference of being able to produce something. We have the fourth object is from Robert and Trix Hausmann. Robert and Trix Hausmann is a great couple. I really appreciate to get known now Trix Hausmann, which is doing great her whole life. I think she's really a master power woman that was organizing everything beside the visions of Robert Hausmann. And it's a couple, they work together all lifelong and kind of since they met, and they did such a great job, and they did a job in between furniture and art. And I think anyway, this creative part to do furnitures, you need to be next to art. You need to be interested in producing forms, in requesting yourself, in requesting the object, in going forward to generate something in the end, like something great. And this couple, as more I know about them and I talk to the son or even get other stories from Trix, I'm very, I think they did a really good job.
That was Fabio Dubler in conversation with Monocle's Desiree Bandley.
And that is all for today's show. For more design stories, listen to our 5-minute midweek bonus show, Monocle on Design Extra, which airs on Thursdays. And if you enjoy print, then do pick up a copy of Monocle magazine as well. It's on all good newsstands now. Today's episode was produced and edited by Maylee Evans, with help from Hunter Wang. I'm Nick Manise. Thanks for listening.